Welcome back to the Sooner Surge. If you have not subscribed to the Sooner Surge channel, make sure you click the button subscribe. We are loving everything that you guys are offering, even if it's criticism. Bring it on. We'll take it. We'll read it and go with it. So you guys make sure you're commenting, enabling your notifications. We're here today to talk about Sooner football, not on the recruiting side, on the practice side. As yesterday, they had a practice. A lot of notes came out from that. Some interviews that maybe you've seen, maybe you haven't, some highlights, some video. And so we're here just to cover that. So let's just start, guys. What stood out? What one thing would you take from yesterday's practice notes that you saw?
The Stutzman gash on his nose. That's the first thing I think. Everyone's seen the photo, the video. It's made its rounds. Brand Venables talked about the intensity when he was asked about the intensity of practices. Are they playing as physical as last year? And he basically answered it by saying yes, but in a different style. Because they're moving in and out of these periods, these short sessions and practices quicker, so they can get more scrimmage time, more drill time, doing stuff like that. So, and as we've just heard, really the physicality of the team last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball, just was not there. So that's something that Oklahoma needs to improve on. And it's all going to start with that defensive line. And if the defensive lineman can be an extremely physical and dominating unit, I think we're going to see an Oklahoma defense that has a lot of success this year.
To me, the thing that stood out, and I was almost had to take a double take from what I heard and read, is the tight end room, guys. And Brent Venables says, other than Austin Stogner, Blake Smith, the transfer out of A&M he mentioned, Cade McIntyre, which we have mentioned Cade McIntyre, but the one I was shocked about was Hampton Fay, guys, ex-quarterback from Michigan State. Venables said he can contribute and that he's physical. Being a quarterback before, he knows what tight ends are supposed to do. I don't know about you, but that name kind of shocked me.
Hey, Hunter.
Yeah.
Are you even higher on Jason Llewellyn now that he said that Oklahoma Smoke Show is his favorite song of the summer?
I thought that was funny. I was waiting for somebody, watching through that whole video, waiting for someone to drop a Zach Bryan song, and it took them all the way to the very end with Jason Llewellyn. The Hampton Fay thing, I'm not too shocked on. Tight end's obviously a room that outside of Austin Stogner, it's really wide open on who could be the second guy there. And Hampton Fay is one. He's been around. He's played college football. He's has a few years under his belt at Michigan State, transferring in. So with other guys being banged up at times, the opportunities are certainly there. But really what stuck out to me the most about yesterday was the comments about the cornerback room. Kendall Dolby and Makari Vickers. Those two names were brought up by Brent Venables as guys that have improved a lot in fall camp. He's not saying he wasn't saying it as a bad thing of their summers and springs, just that they've made improvements. He was talking about the defensive back room, how as a whole they're still learning, they're still getting adjusted. But he's really talking like that. There's a lot of improvements already, and we're, I think, day 9 of fall camp was yesterday.
Yep, day 9, and you're right. Dolby was a guy we thought would maybe possibly contribute pretty early because of the experience factor. If you look at pure physicality, maybe some of those intangibles with just strength and
versatility,
he's not the guy that jumps off the charts though on those numbers. Weight room numbers, speed compared to some of the other guys, but he is heady. And I think that's going to play a role. Going back to the tight end, you're right. What I like to read between the lines, sometimes probably too much, but I see what that basically could have been said too is they're going to contribute because they're going to be contributing in the running game, short yardage situation and things like that. I could see those other guys, especially the quarterback from Michigan State, being in there on those things, blocking, because we know that may be Stogner's weakness. But overall, what stood out to me was Andrell Anthony. Andrell Anthony, again, seems like he is making gains, and they're not going to be able to keep him off the field. I don't know where he fits, if he's just going to be a backup, if he's going to be starting on day 1. But obviously, Anthony is highlight reel happening every day at practice.
Yeah, and with Andrew Anthony, obviously we heard that in the scrimmage he had multiple long touchdowns. Brent Venables said today in practice he said yesterday in practice that he had another touchdown. So you just talk about a guy that obviously out of Michigan provided a lot of speed, but the question was why couldn't he get on the field in Michigan? Was it due to lack of development in Michigan? Was it due to maybe just him not fitting right in their scheme? Well, I like the way he fits in a Jeff Lebby scheme, just due to the vertical threat he is and how vertical Jeff Lebby likes to run offenses, taking a lot of deep shots, and that's why I think another guy this year like Jaquez Petaway will see a lot of playing time, just due to his downfield ability and his speed.
Yeah, I mean, with Anthony, just like you said, the field stretching ability he has, I think that's going to play a large role. But Jeremy, you mentioned with Kendall Dolby, like, you know, he might not jump off the tape, and he's not like the tallest player either. Like he's not tall. Like you look at Gentry Williams, you look at Jaden Rowe, you look at even Kenai Walker. Those guys are like, you look at them and you're like, that looks like a really good corner. Dolby's not very tall, but I think his just ability, like he can play nickel, he can play safety, he can play corner. And I think, he has experience, which is going to help. So I don't know if he'll be a starter, but I do think he's going to be one of those rotational corners. Then one of the things that jumped out to me, like with the offense, OU football on Twitter, or X, I should say, they put out that highlight video, and I saw Tawi Walker just bouncing off people running. So that's interesting to me because we have talked about the running back room a lot. And before you mention Tawi Walker, you're mentioning guys like Javonte Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk, Marcus Major, and even Caleb Hicks. So right there, you're like, okay, is Tawi Walker going to get any substantial reps? Because we just mentioned 4 guys that will likely be ahead of him. But in my opinion, 4th and 1 or like 3rd and goal from the goal line, I'd be wanting to put Tawi Walker back in there and just let him run, because while Marcus Major, yeah, he's physically like that, but Tawi Walker, they just can't bring him down. Like in even another situation I'd see him playing into is when you're up on Arkansas State or you're up on a team like UCF or Iowa State, you're up big. I say you just put Tawi in there and let him just pound them for the rest of the game and just get that thing over with. But I do think we'll see him a decent amount this year.
I think it was Reggie Pearson that said that Tawi Walker is the hardest player to tackle. I believe I could be wrong on that, but
he would be hard to tackle.
Yeah, and then I also know that last year Tawi Walker was compared by someone I don't remember, but to just a bowling ball with the way he runs.
Yeah,
and just as Brody said, he bounces off tackles. He's only like 5'9", probably 5'9", 5'10". I don't know his weight, but he's a big guy. And he's someone, as Brody said, that you can put on like a 3rd and goal, a 4th and 1, a 3rd and 1. And he's not going to get you 1 yard. He's going to get you 2 or 3 yards every single time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Brody, shortly there when you were talking about the cornerbacks, Jaden Rowe, Brent Venables did say he's been battling injury again. And that's kind of been disappointing with Rowe because I think he's just so freaking talented.
Mm-hmm.
Even Venables said that. They just got to keep him on the field. But I'd love for our viewers to comment here. Who's the 2 cornerback starters day one, guys? We're hearing a lot of names thrown out there now. You got Woody Washington, Gentry Williams, Kendall Dolby, Josiah Wagner, Buckle Up, Seatbelt Vickers. I mean, who'd I miss? Nye Walker. I mean, you got a bunch of teams there. I'd love for our viewers to comment, tell us who they think is going to be the 2. Obviously, I think most people will say Woody, but who's going to be on there too? So just a lot of names there.
Yeah, I think with Jaden Rowe, I mean, everyone has had high expectations for him. Jeremy, you've seen him run in person, right? Have you?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Him and Gentry together.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Jaden Rowe, I think it's all just a point of like he was hurt last year. If he can just stay healthy and just keep developing under like Jay Valai, if he's going to play corner or if he's going to play safety, wherever it be, I think a lot of people, you just want to see him stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, he can get on the field next year. He can be a special teams factor. He can be a situational factor. So, yeah, it does suck to hear that he's battling injuries. You'd like him to, I mean, just because he was battling so many injuries last year. But anyone who's really familiar with football and the 918 and high school football knows that Jaden Rowe is a beast, and he was. And, those 3 guys you talk about from the 918, Gentry Williams, Robert Spears Jennings, and Jaden Rowe, I think at least 2 of those guys are going to be contributors this year. And one of them might even start. I expect RSJ is going to play a lot as well. If you could just get Jaden Rowe to just stay healthy, that would be huge.
Hey, Hunter, I think we might have earlier on this year we were talking about kind of weaknesses from OU, and I had mentioned the offensive line. I think you were higher on the offensive line, and what we're hearing on multiple occasions now from multiple people, even Jackson Arnold today, talking about the offensive line and how strong they've been in pass protection and run game. Is this going to be a strength for OU? I mean, obviously they're not very deep with the injuries, but the starting five I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it sounds like the starting five is playing great.
That's the concern, is if injuries start to happen, where do you go from there? Obviously, in a perfect world, the starting five stays together, no injuries. The depth, again, can get healthy, and the two deep there. Yeah, the offensive line could be one of the best it's been. I know that's been thrown around quite a bit. Looking at the tackles, you got Walter Rouse, who is a senior from Stanford. He's played a lot of college football. You got Tyler Guyton, who will probably be a first-round pick. You got Savion Byrd, who has the second highest ceiling on that offensive line. You got Andrew Rame, who's been at OU now for a few years. He's got experience under his belt. And then McCade Matoyer, same thing. He's played a lot of college football. This line has experience. They have really high expectations as each individual person on the line. So yeah, I think Bill Bedenbaugh's put together another good offensive line with a lot of development. Obviously, if injuries start to happen, it could start to get concerning in certain places. But really, then on the two deep, there's some guys that, in my opinion, are good enough to start if that's what it had to be.
And whenever you look at this offensive line just individually, there's three of these guys that I honestly would not be shocked if are getting drafted into the NFL in this upcoming draft, and Tyler Guyton, Savion Byrd, and Walter Rouse. So you just talk about individual talent with Bill Bedenbaugh has never been an issue. It's been that under Lincoln Riley, it was the lack of proper strength and conditioning. And now that the offensive linemen have Schmitty back, now the reason OU struggled on offensive line, people are just like, oh, Bill Bedenbaugh forgot how to coach. He didn't forget how to coach, guys, because the strength and conditioning was not up to par to where OU needed to be on the offensive line. And I think Schmitty's got those boys right up front. And that's part of the reason why we're going to see a nasty offensive line. And I think it could be the best offensive line we've seen since 2019.
Hey,
Yeah.
One last thing I had, and I'll shut up. I don't have anything else. Trace Ford talking today about Ethan Downs and Bothroyd as like the two leaders of that defensive line. We all know Bothroyd come in and he's playing great. He's been around college football. Ethan Downs has too, and I think Ethan Downs has taken on a big time role with that defensive line as a leadership. And I think he's gonna have a better year than maybe some people have kind of anticipated.
It's not shocking to hear that Ethan Downs is a great leader, because whenever you just hear Miguel Chavis talk about him, he just raves and raves about him, just the kind of kid or the kind of guy he is off the field as well as on the field. And Ethan Downs is a kind of guy that you want to have in your locker room. He just is.
Yeah, it seems like Downs has also gotten more physical. He's gotten a lot better physically. And we keep talking about the defensive line, but real quick, I wanted to go back to the offensive line because Hunter mentioned the injuries, and to me, it's particularly on the tackle position because you look at guard like Troy Everett. I'd feel like he could start a game. He could start a few games. Caleb Schaefer, same could be said there. When you look at the tackles, I mean, right now they need Jacob Sexton. If he could get healthy, that would be huge. And that personally, I would feel better about the tackle, depth if he could get back healthy.
Yeah, and it's very clear to me you're going to see if OU's to get any kind of lead, which we think they will early in the year, you got to rotate these other guys in a lot on the O-line. That's the one area you've really got to plug guys in and just see what they can do, because if an injury were to happen, we need guys prepared. I feel like OU's got pretty much guys prepared in the other positions, but that is the area. So I expect to see a lot of the young guys, a lot of guys getting some time in the O-line early on, because that first unit's solid, got NFL talent all through it. They're going to be ready. They're gelling, everything like that. So.
Yeah, and I think that just the ceiling for this offensive line has that potential to be a Joe Moore Award finalist. I truly do think that you can get that this year. When you look at even the struggles they had last year on the offensive line at points, especially on the interior, you just saw a team that led the conference in rushing, and also a team that was really last year wasn't a bad offensive line. But I think if you take away Anton Harrison and Wanya Morris off the offensive line last year, it really isn't that good of an offensive line. So you talk about just an offensive line that's more complete overall. I think that's going to help not only Dylan Gabriel, but I also think it's going to help Jeff Levy and how he calls games as well.
Yeah, also interesting that the next scrimmage will be tomorrow. So that's something of note.
Yeah, so guys, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. We're going to be here to cover it all for you guys up until game day, which is a little less than 3 weeks away. Whether you have a Chevy or a Ford, hop in it, turn on that Dolby surround sound, row that, whatever you got. Let's get over to Palace on the Prairie, less than 3 weeks, and get ready to rock and roll at the Palace on the Prairie. Till next time, guys. Boomer.
Boomer.